What is money for? Is it a helpful resource to use for good, or is the love of it the root of all evil? Actually, it's both, but God may have a different definition of success. Real success doesn't come overnight. It takes hard work and faithful planning. To use your dollars well, it takes more than a little sense. Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Cents. My name is Yvonne Lewis, and I'm the co-host for this program. And our primary host is Ryan Mack, financial literacy expert. Yay, Ryan!
Always good to be with you.
Oh, it's great to be with you. And these lessons on financial literacy are just powerful.
Right. I mean, this is we have a lot of things to cover, and bottom line, there's so many ways that the Scripture is empowering our lives, and I just feel very blessed to be here.
Yeah, you know, I love the fact that each program starts with the Scripture because it just reinforces the idea that Scripture is relevant, that we don't have to think, oh, you know, the Scripture's back in the day. No, Scripture is relevant for today. And so we can really find everything you need is right in the Word. All you have to do is search. God has given us everything we need. So we're going to start today with the Scripture, and then Ryan's going to take us into our lesson.
We have the Scripture for the day. Again, it's financial based, but Galatians 6:9, because the theme of the day is single struggles. And there are a lot of parents out there who are raising their children by themselves, men and women. I was raised by a single parent. You said you were a single parent at one point, and again, I don't have any children, but I can't imagine how challenging it would be. So I found this scripture that I think that hopefully it resonates with those individuals out there, and hopefully it resonates with you out there. So this is Galatians 6:9. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in the due season we shall reap if we faint not. And you know, I just thought about my mother when I read that scripture, and you know, raising two kids by herself, and the things that she had to go through. And again, I would see her sometimes make this sigh. Sometimes when she'd get home from work, that you know, and then she would go and make dinner. And at the time, I remember just as clear as day, she had to be making maybe $13,000, $14,000 a year. And here she has these two children that she has to provide for. And it doesn't stop. I mean, our stomachs don't not get hungry. We have to eat. We have clothes, and we have to have a roof over our head. So the responsibility is constant. Even I just couldn't imagine that. So I mean, were your experiences similar, or and how was it being a single parent? I mean, you have a different perspective on it, obviously.
Yeah, for me, when I was a single parent, I had already had a career, and that career had been pretty lucrative. So financially, I was okay. I had different times of having issues because I was self-employed, but you still have so many responsibilities and so many things because you're juggling. You're wearing all these different hats. So you're mom at home, you're a professional person outside the home, and you have to make sure that you. For me, I mean, I grew up in a kind of traditional home where the wife cooks and you know, makes sure her children are fed, and so that's what my mom did for me. And she was a professional woman, so I had to do that for my children, make sure that they're fed, make sure that I help them and teach them lessons, and yet I had to wear that other hat too, because I'm the mother and the father in the home. Thankfully, my boys were close to their dads, but still, I was mom in the home, and I had to make sure that. So you're wearing all these different hats, and it is really not an easy thing.
Well, I knew I was close to my father as well, but again, seeing every other weekend is a little bit different,
right,
than constant and consistent. I remember my mother would tell us stories about how she had to budget. And she would go, again, she didn't have a lot of money, so she would go over to the rich part of town in Detroit, right? And she would look at the Somerset malls, and that's one of a fancy mall in the suburbs of Detroit. And she would window shop at these malls, but she couldn't afford to buy anything. And then she would go back on her side of town where we lived, and she would go to the thrift store. And the same thing she saw in the window of the fancy stores, she would buy in the thrift store or something close to it.
Wow.
So, you know, it might be a $300 or $400 outfit that she would buy for $5 and $10 at the thrift store. And I remember the days of Wonder Bread pizzas and government cheese and tomato paste and all those things. And that was our pizza. And our movie night was watching the black and white screen, and my brother and I would rotate between who held the antenna, the wire antenna and the television. And we would go to the dollar movies, get the 50-cent popcorn, and then bring the popcorn back home and watch it on the black and white television for movie nights.
Wow.
So I remember those, you know, those days, and I didn't really have a perspective of exactly what she was going through because we were always happy. Mm-hmm. We always had food. We always had clothes on our back and a roof over the top of our head. And one thing I learned that my mother taught me was contentment. And I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating that contentment does not mean I'm happy to be broke. Contentment.
Wait, you have to say that again.
Contentment does not mean I'm happy to be broke.
Uh-huh.
Contentment means that despite my state, I can smile. And I can smile not because I'm happy with my state, but I'm happy in my state.
What a great differentiation here.
It is.
Because that's saying, you know, because, you know, Paul tells us to be content in whatever situation we're in, but I love the distinction here because it's not being content with it,
Right.
it's being content in it, meaning that you can change that state.
And I learned a lot. My first financial lessons came from my mother in that situation. And she eventually got a new job, and she was dressed nice all the time, so she moved up the ladder of success. And she eventually became the first black female director of admissions at any public university in Michigan. Oh. She bought her own home, and it was amazing just seeing her do that. And then looking back on it, I said, wow, you know what, she really had to do a lot of things. And again, my father was there as well. But again, it's just to be that single parent where if you can't take a nap.
That's right.
And I mean, I can't imagine not being able to take a nap. So I think about that. I think about the many single parents all across this country who are doing such tremendous work. I have a good friend of mine, Kenyatta Campbell, and she is actually running not one but two nonprofit organizations in the city of Detroit. And she's doing a great job. She has 2 children, and she's very successful. She just won Organization of the Year, and all the while being a single parent. And so there, Chanel Jackson, who just had a child, is now 11 months old, and she is a very successful, used to be a state rep, and is also a single parent. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of people that I think are just doing amazing feats. They're doing heroes work or heroines work, and I think they need to be commended. And I just wanted to dedicate this show to them and see if we can just provide some sort of a guidance and tips about that can give them a little bit of light to maybe give them a little bit of assistance.
That's great. And there are some dads too,
Yes.
who are raising their children without the mom. It's
Yes.
more prevalent to be a single parent female and raising children, but there are some dads who are also
Right.
raising children, and it, you know, when you're doing it, you often feel like this is a 2-parent thing. This should really be a husband and a wife.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
it doesn't work out that way all the time. And so, you know, you just do the best you can.
Right.
You know, but God is there. And I know with me, with my children, God was there and provided for us and made sure that I was working. And we had some hard times too from time to time. But the Lord was He always provided. And that's one thing that, you know, if you're going through something, a struggle, you can always turn to God, and He will direct you as to what to do, how to navigate through that dark time. The Lord will show you that.
And the Lord was in our household every single second of us growing up. I can feel Him. I can, just thinking back on the many experiences that we've had. And I think that planning, that being able to, that attention, that love, all these things are found in the Word of God. And again, you can go to a counselor, and many single parents do, and I've many times advocate individuals going to divorce attorneys, but this Word is the greatest counselor that we could have. And it's, I just urge my mother still to this day. She said she reads a scripture every single day, and she'll tell me what she read for that day. And I think that gave her that grounding, that foundation, just to make it through.
Absolutely. You have to be anchored to make it through.
Absolutely. So I have a few tips.
Okay, good.
The first tip is creating a roadmap for your life, right?
Okay.
And again, this is really all about the foundation that many newly single parents who've just recently been divorced are really just out there and don't necessarily know the direction that they're going to have. I think that there are many divorce counselors who have said you have to have consistent and non-negative communication with the spouse or the previous spouse, making sure you're talking and making sure you're not condemning the other individual in front of the parent of the child, and also making sure that you have a post-marriage vision for your life. And many individuals can be, and I've done, and I'm a financial advisor, but many individuals who've come to me, they come to me for financial concerns, but sometimes they'll think I'm actually a counselor, a marriage counselor, and I'm not. I'm not a marriage counselor, and I'll try to give the best advice I can without violating any laws, because I'm not trying to delve into that. But they end up they end up saying, "Hey, Ryan, I'm emotionally in a rut right now, and I just don't know what I'm supposed to do." And I've seen men and women do that.
You know, Ryan, you touched on something that I think is really important to kind of expand on, and that is you have to have a plan for how you are going to communicate with that spouse, with that other parent post-divorce. Because if you don't, if you're running down that parent to the children, that's so negative, that damages the children. If you use the children as a pawn, that damages the children. If you're using, putting them in between or dogging the other parent, that is it's so unhealthy for the children. The best thing to do is to find a way to co-parent, because that way the children didn't ask to come here, and they're here, and so they have to be nurtured, and so they have to be in an environment that's nurturing. So if you have, baby mama drama, or the dad is a deadbeat dad, or whatever, that's you guys have to work it out.
Yes, absolutely.
They have to work it out.
And your point's very well taken. Again, I've seen a lot of individuals just kind of get stuck, and many individuals who are saying, they're not going to pursue, for single parents out there, they're not going to pursue financial support for their child. And I think that's a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake, because it's not about the emotional decision at this point. It's about the logical decision that your child has clothes, has food, and if you don't need a dime of that money, and if all of your bills and everything is provided for, then you can take that financial support that you're receiving from that spouse and put it into a 529 savings plan. So there's always something that you can do with that additional support, whether it's current needs. If those needs are provided and you have everything under control, then good for you. But then there are future needs that you could be putting more money into to make sure your child have college expenses and all sorts of things. I mean, whatever it is, we have to be logical and be very fiscally responsible as we're planning for our children.
Again, that is another really important point, because both of you were responsible for that child being here. So why should one parent bear the burden of the financial burden
Right.
of doing all of the care for that child, and the other one just goes scot-free
Right, right.
to have another family somewhere.
Absolutely.
No, that responsibility, if the other parent is not showing responsibility, then you have to sometimes help that along,
Right.
I think.
Exactly.
And so, if you need to get some assistance, legal assistance, you
Right.
get it.
And I'll throw in another touchy issue that relates to single parent, but it also relates to high incarceration rates in the U.S. For black and white households. I do a lot of counseling in prisons, and many individuals in prisons don't like to have a bank account, and they'll tell you they don't want to have a bank account because it leads to child support. If they have to give their social security number, they'll be able to locate how much money they're having, and they'll get their wages garnished. So what they'll do is they'll try to stay outside of the system in order to avoid paying child support.
These are people who are incarcerated?
Who are incarcerated, who are soon to be released, and when they're released and they're back into society, they try to do everything in the world to, and this is a very common problem that I've seen, and if you talk to any warden or correctional officer, they'll say the same thing. When people get out, there are many individuals, if they have children, don't want to get on record. And so henceforth, they will begin to use check cashing facilities so they don't have to get a checking account. They'll get prepaid debit cards so they don't have to register have their social security number registered. And all these things, again, are contributing to this perpetual underclass of society because that particular parent didn't want to pay for their child. Now they're trying to stay outside the system. Can they ever buy a home? Can they ever start a business and get a loan? And all these things that individuals in I guess, normal communities that are not poverty-stricken or suffering from financial woes, they have access to. And so what sometimes individuals in underserved communities will do things outside of the realm of responsibility that keeps all of us down. So these tips, again, I want to reiterate, these are tips that I want individuals to use to face the responsibility and obligation head on, whether you're a single parent or if you are not rearing the child directly, you still should have some responsibility in raising that child.
Absolutely.
So the next tip is controlling spending and having fun. A lot of times, again, we would go, I remember one of the trips that we had, because my mother did budget, we went to Canada, and there was an Indian reservation in Canada that we just wanted to just go visit. And the reason that we chose that because my brother and I chose to go to this Indian reservation in Canada. There's no reason for that, no rhyme for that, but the biggest reason for that from my mother's perspective was it was free outside the little small cost that goes across the border. And so it was cost effective for us to take that trip. That was our trip, right? And so we went up to this Indian reservation and we just saw a bunch of corn and didn't really see a lot. We heard a strange noise and I got scared and said, let's go home. But that was our trip. That was our fiscally responsible trip that my mother could only afford to make. So I urge everyone, we need to start learning how to write our budget down. You know, how much are you spending? And a simple process for forming a budget is to write down an estimated budget and how much you think you're going to spend that month. Then do a 30-day spending diary. And how much do you actually spend in every single day? You throw a penny in the well, write it down in your 30-day spending diary. And then you write down an actual budget at the end of that 30 days. I've never met a person to go through this process and not say, wow, I didn't know how much money I spent on this grocery or that bill or these expenditures. And then we have to start learning about patterns and habits of how other people are trying to make us break our budget. For instance, never shop when you're hungry. Never shop when you're bored. Never shop when you are overly emotional or happy. What is the first thing that individuals do? It says, you're sad, you just broke up, girl, let's go shopping. These are certain things that happen that cause us to start spending money irresponsibly and breaking our budget. So we have to start learning how to not break the bank. Make sure we have all the budget breakers can easily be, are we having coupons? They have extreme coupons that individuals go out and clip a lot of coupons and saving a lot of capital by just saving money at the grocery store every single day.
That is so true. And you know, some of these loyalty programs,
Yes.
like I know I get, because I'm kind of like a Kroger addict. So I'm in Kroger a lot, which is a local grocery store. And they track your spending patterns, and then they see, well, you bought organic celery.
Right.
So they'll send you a coupon for that. So the next time you get it, you can save 50 cents on that. And before you know it, that adds up. And you can save some money on your spending just by using coupons.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another financial tip that I'd like to give single parents is, have you organized and reevaluated your financial documents? I think this is key. Is your life insurance up to date? Many times the individual that you just divorced from still is the beneficiary of that life insurance policy. Do you want to keep that individual for that beneficiary? Do you have enough coverage for your child? There are many times you might be able to get have a divorce attorney to essentially draft up a good custodial agreement that will allow you to be the owner, if you're the custodian, to make sure that you're the owner of that policy that your spouse was paying for. So all these things. So do you have a good divorce attorney? Do you have a good attorney look over all your documents? Is your 401k, 403b up to date? Do you still want to have your spouse to be the beneficiary to that? All these things and more. And your estate plan, obviously, you need to revise your will. And any good estate plan needs to have a will, living will, healthcare proxy, durable spring and financial power of attorney. All these things up to date. Maybe your spouse that you just divorced from was your healthcare proxy, the agent appointed in healthcare proxy. Maybe your spouse was your power of attorney that you stated to be your attorney in fact to carry out your wishes. Do you still want that individual to have that same responsibility? All these decisions need to be made to make sure that your life is firmly in order.
That's really good. You are basically just taking control
Yes, exactly.
of your life. And actually, you definitely need to check back, because I mean, I've received documents that my ex-husband is still on
Right.
one of my former health plans.
Right.
And it's just, you
I
know,
can't
it
tell
doesn't
you,
make any sense.
There are so many clients that I've worked with over the years who something happened, and next thing you know, their beneficiary was their spouse, and they didn't even know about it. I mean, I had one case where an individual had their beneficiary as their spouse was divorced years ago. She passed away. And now they looked at the documents, see where the 401k went and the life insurance policy. And she had stated numerous times that she wanted the policy and the benefits to go to her children. Well, again, that became a huge debate. It had to go to probate, and eventually the policy usurped the will, because in the will she left all those assets to her children. But these things usurp the will. Your 401k statements, the life insurance policies, usurp above and beyond what the will states. So it was a huge battle, and it didn't end favorably for her, but just all she had to do, every single 2 years, married or not actually, you should be updating your documents on a regular basis. So.
Absolutely. You take control, do that budget, look at your old documents, make
Right.
sure that you know where you're going, where you want to go, and make sure you know where your money's going.
Right.
'Cause a lot of times you just don't know.
And another tip that I have here is setting up an emergency fund. You're a single parent now. You're essentially living on your own. Your liquidity is very important. Any additional windfall, I advise you put into a cash account to make sure you have any emergencies. Your income into the household is probably not as plentiful as it was before. So have that 9 to 12 months of living expenses saved up. And then once you make sure you capitalize on your tax breaks. There are many tax breaks that we can have out there, because individuals, if you're earning under $75,000 a year, you might be eligible for an additional $1,000 a year for additional tax break for each individual child that you're actually rearing. All these things are earned income tax credit. It's a huge thing that individuals, if many individuals, I work with an organization called Operation Hope. And this organization essentially helps for free, and many organizations do the similar work, helps for free to discern exactly how much money is being left on the table by earned income tax credit. You have the obligation that they pay you for working. And if you're under a certain income level, up to 3 years in arrears, you can get a free check from the government. We've had individuals walk out of the offices at Operation Hope for with maybe as much as $9,000
Wow.
in arrears of a check from the government.
Wow.
And then lastly, consider a new career. Possibly you might want to expand and get additional education. And most importantly, ask for help. You are not by yourself.
Absolutely. Ask for help and ask God for help.
Absolutely. And God is right there. You are not alone.
That's right. Keep him in the midst. Well, you have a takeaway for us.
I sure do. I have some things I have to get off my chest.
All right. Good.
There is no question about the sanctity of marriage. The word clearly says in Hebrews 13:4, let marriage be held in honor among all. In an ideal situation, we would have a husband and a wife in the household together to raise a child. We serve a perfect God, but the world isn't always perfect. There are many in and out of the church who are raising children as single parents. Two-parent households are on the decline in the U.S., while we are seeing spikes in the divorce rates. According to the Pew Research Center, the percent of children living in a two-parent household in the 60s was 73%. By 2014, the percent of children living in two-parent households was 46%. Single-parent households increased almost 300% in the same period. To the community, we must address all issues in a loving way. We can seek solutions to the increasing divorce rates, as well as make sure that those single parents always feel welcomed, loved, and their needs are being addressed as well. To the parents, I'm not a parent. I have no children, so I can't pretend to know what it feels like to have the responsibility of raising a life every single day, let alone to have to do it all by yourself. However, I do know I have a God who loves everybody. I remember the days my mother, a single parent herself, would be tired and just be seeking rest. I was too young to recognize what that post-work, just getting home, really meant. Right before she began to cook dinner and started her second job, raising two children. It says in Matthew 11:28, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. We at Dollars and Cents aren't so naive to believe that a few financial tips will make all your problems disappear. We only pray you can find some solace from the use of this information to lighten your load a bit. If you know nothing more, you know that you have people out there who really care about you. Please know that you are in our hearts, our minds, and prayers as you take on one of the most important tasks, rearing the next generation. Please reach out to Dollars and Cents. Please feel free to email us at dollarsandcents@3abn.org or visit us on Dare to Dream Network on Facebook. If you feel that there's anything we can do to assist your journey. But you are not alone, as it says in Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord, your God, is with you wherever you go. Take care of yourself and each other. Be the change you want to see. And remember, the purpose of life is a life full of purpose.